Hey yo, it's Brian here. Today talking about the San Francisco 49ers, as always, doing my edge-to-edge video for this game against the Minnesota Vikings happening this Saturday at Levi Stadium. I'm excited for this matchup. 49ers versus Vikings. This is going to be an epic titan of two teams. The 49ers, as we all know, one of the best teams in the NFL. The Vikings, they did a really good job beating the New Orleans Saints in the wild card game in overtime. Kirk Cousins, he did come through for them finally, and he's had problems with that his whole career in terms of primetime games, but it's good to see him do really well in the game against the Saints on Sunday. So, yep, I can't wait for this matchup. Hope you guys are as well. If you're a 49er fan, please do not underestimate the Vikings. They are a very potent team. They're similar to us. They have a pretty good offense when Dalvin Cook can go on, and also their defense, they're pretty potent as well. So, this is going to be an interesting edge-to-edge on each position on what I pick. Saturday, 4:35 p.m. Eastern Time, and let's see what it leads us to for everything else. Tomorrow, I'll have prediction videos for this game, and it's going to be a fun one. Anyways, going to get the video started, but before I do, please like and subscribe. That's going to help out a lot. Click that bell notification, get notified of future videos. Share this channel, share this content with fellow United faithfuls. And yeah, let's just get this started. 49ers versus Vikings, who at the edge, position by position. Okay, first up, let's talk about the most important position of all of football. Quarterback, Jimmy G versus Kirk Cousins. Who they get the initial edge to? Both quarterbacks, they're not too bad at all. Jimmy G, he had a great year in my opinion, especially the second half of 2019 when the defense is down. And some games I can include that he had an awesome game or clutch moments were the game against the Saints, the game against the Rams the second time they met up, and the Seattle Seahawks Week 17 for the NFC West title. Those were three great games in my opinion from him, and can't go wrong with that. Kirk Cousins, he's had a pretty good season in my opinion as well, but he had some meltdown moments, not like Jimmy G, where he didn't clutch it at the end. Some games I can give you an example of are the Packers twice and the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football in Seattle. So he's had some games where it's like, oh man, you got to close the game out, and you didn't. Two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of clutch and no clutchness, in my opinion. If you had to give the initial edge for that, that'd be Jimmy G. I love both quarterbacks. They can throw for yards, they can throw for some touchdowns, but if I had to give the initial edge for this game before Saturday, I'm going to have to give it to Jimmy G, in my opinion. I think he's had a really good year, in my opinion, and at the end of 2019, I've seen his progression from week 1 all the way to week 17. He has grown to be the leader of this team. Well, we all knew that, but he's been able to perform well. He's been able to throw touchdowns, be in the clutch when you need him, and when your defense is down, he's able to make something happen. When there's adversity, he's a lot better at that than Kirk Cousins is, in my opinion. For me, initially, Jimmy G. Also, if it's a 2-minute drill, if I had to rely on one quarterback to save my life, I'm going to give it to Jimmy, definitely. So, initial edge, Jimmy Garoppolo. Next up, let's talk about the running back position. Our running backs, the running back by committee of Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, and Matt Breida versus Dalvin Cook, their top leading rusher and NFL rusher as well. If I had to get the initial edge, pretty difficult one in my opinion. This had me thinking about which one I want to give the initial edge to. Who would I pick? For me, to be honest with you, I'm actually going to pick San Francisco's running back. You guys thinking I'm crazy if you're a Vikings fan, but I have to give it to San Francisco just because of the fact, one, they were second in the league in rushing, so they can make stuff happen. Also, I mean, when you have three running backs, you have a lot of options to choose from. Mike Zimmer and company, they have to pick on who they want to go after and what have you. They got a game plan for three running backs instead of just the 49ers, but they only have the game plan for Dalvin Cook for the most part. San Francisco, I mean, with Raheem Mostert being the lead rusher for the second half of the year, you have to go with him, and I believe he's going to have a pretty good game against the Vikings, although they have a pretty good defense, in my opinion, with Everson, Griffin, Hunter, and them. It's going to be difficult for the 49ers rushing attack, but I like my offensive line. I like how they've been running all year long, and I have to give the initial edge to them just because three running backs, very quality running back, not just some weirdos, nobodies, and what have you. Raheem Mostert and them, I have to give them the initial edge over Cook. He's still a great running back, and you got to be careful if you're the 49ers defense. Wide receiver position, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, those guys versus our receivers led by Emmanuel Sanders and Deebo Samuel. Who would I give the initial edge to? Actually, to be honest with you, almost hands down, I'm going to give it to the Vikings because they are just awesome, dynamic duo. You can't go wrong with that. Initially, early on, they had some struggles with Kirk Cousins. They actually gone back and forth with him earlier in the season, but now they have some rapport together, and they made the playoffs and beat the Saints in the wildcard game. Very impressive there. Diggs and Thielen, you can't go wrong with them. Two of the best duos in the NFL, along with, I guess, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and what have you, but I'm going to give the initial edge to the Vikings wide receivers. They ball out all year long. Although, I do love me some Deebo Samuel, Emmanuel Sanders, but in this case, I mean, almost hands down, I'm going to give it to them in this situation. Tight end position, George Kittle versus Kyle Rudolph. Who do you give the initial edge to? I mean, seriously, I'm going to give it to my boy George Kittle. I love me some Kyle Rudolph. He's done great things for the Vikings. Pro Bowler, almost all-pro guy, but I mean, George Kittle, he's one of the best tight ends ends in the NFL. Can't go wrong with him. So edge, George Kittle, WWE, man. Last up for the offensive side of the ball, let's talk about the offensive line. This should be a little bit more interesting. The 49ers versus Vikings, who to give the initial edge to. In my opinion, actually, I'm going to give it to the Vikings offensive line. They've done, I think, a better job of protecting Kirk Cousins this year than they did last year. The 49ers offensive line, they haven't been doing well in protecting Jimmy G. They did okay against Seattle week 17, but the last couple of stretches of the game with the Falcons and Rams and what have you, man, they were just getting pressured all day, and Jimmy G was taking a couple of hits, which is very concerning this late in the season. Vikings, they've been a pretty good job on protecting Cousins for the most part. So initial edge, the Vikings, they are rushing really well with Dalvin Cook. Cousins, for the most part, he's had some time to throw it to Thielen and Diggs, Rudolph, and those guys. They have a lot of weapons, and their offensive line, I think, it's a little bit more effective than the 49ers, although the 49ers run blocking, it's really good as well. Initial edge, Minnesota, I got to give it to them. Next up, let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. Okay, time for the defensive side of the ball. This is a very interesting matchup just because of the fact that these defenses, they are just awesome. The Vikings, they can get to the quarterback. The same thing with the 49ers. They can get to the quarterback for the most part, minus injuries. This is going to be a difficult one. There's going to be no hands-down edges for this one on the defensive side of the ball because both defenses are relentless. First up, let's talk about the defensive line. 49ers versus Vikings, who to give the initial edge to. First up, let's talk about the 49ers D-line. They've been a pretty good unit for the most part all year long. Now, in the second half of the season, they've been struggling just because of the injuries. We have guys like DJ Jones, Ronald Blair out for the season. They've been struggling with rotations. I've seen Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, and Eric Armstead be on the field almost 100% of the time, to be honest with you. It's just like 80%, but it feels like 100% of the time I see them on the field. It's not good, and they've been suffering because of that. The run defense has been suffering big time, but we do have a couple of reinforcements coming to the 49ers. Earl Mitchell coming out of retirement, interior lineman. Also, you got D Ford coming to the 49ers, coming back from injury. That's going to be a big help as well, because without Ford, Nick Bosa has been struggling just because of the fact they've been double teaming him forever now, ever since he's been out. So hopefully him coming back, making his return, that's going to be a beneficial thing for the 49ers. Vikings defensive line, they can get at you quickly. Daniel Hunter, Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, and Steven, man, they are just, wow, I don't know what else to say. They've been a troublemaker for any offense, in my opinion. Man, who to give the initial edge for this one? You know, for me personally, I was going to give it to the Vikings just because they are a relentless defense and they can get at you. They can do some crazy stuff, but I'm going to give it to the 49ers initially, just a slight edge, just because of the fact I think the guys coming back healthy with D Ford and Mitchell making his return, that's going to be a very big boost for the 49ers. That's going to be the big difference, in my opinion. Also, the positions trickling down from Kwon Alexander and them coming back, Jaquiski, Tartt, that's going to make the defense even better, in my opinion. Slight edge, 49ers, although the Vikings defensive line, you can't go wrong with them at all. So initial edge, 49ers defensive line, slight bit. Linebacking core, Fred Warner, middle linebacker versus Kendricks, middle linebacker. Those two lead the defenses because they're the middle linebackers, if you all know that by now. Anyways, who's going to give the initial edge to? Actually, for this one, I'm going to give it to the 49ers. Vikings, they have some very good linebackers as well. Eric Wilson, Anthony Barr, Pro Bowler guys. You can't go wrong with them. But at the same time, I got my boys Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. They've been performing all year long. They've been balling out. Warner, I can't believe he's getting snubbed from all these All-Pros and Pro Bowl considerations. He should be at least considered for one of those honors, but unfortunately not. I guess they hate the 49ers some way, shape, or form. But anyways, Warner, number 54, he's been balling out all year long. He deserves a lot of respect, definitely. Kwon Alexander, this is the reason why I'm giving the edge to the 49ers initially, is because he should be making his return on Saturday. If not, then I guess I'm a liar, but all the reports are saying that he's going to be available for this game in the divisional round. That's going to be a big factor, in my opinion, and he's probably going to be the reason why everything turns for the 49ers in terms of the linebacking and just the defense in general, because the energy man, the guy that gets everything going, the motivator, the leader of this defense, Kwon, is the big difference maker. Definitely, we've been missing him all year long. Although Dre Greenlaw taking over for him, he has been a great guy to replace him, so nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I gotta have my energy man Kwon. I think he's gonna make his return on the divisional round against the Vikings this Saturday. So initial edge, San Francisco. I love my linebacking core, although you also can't go wrong with the linebacking core of the Vikings as well. Last up for the defensive side of the ball, let's talk about the defensive backs. Richard Sherman versus Xavier Rhodes, who to give the initial edge to. Very difficult, in my opinion. I mean, Richard Sherman, he's one of the best corners in the game. He got Pro Bowl and second-team All-Pro honors, which is much deserving. Also, the safety position, Jaquiski Tartt should be making his return in this game, so that's going to be a very big difference maker in terms of the secondary. He's the reason why our secondary was number one in terms of all of defensive passing, so that's going to be a big difference maker for him coming back. Other guys, Jimmy Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, they're difference makers as well. The whole backfield for the 49ers, they've been just awesome all year long. The Vikings secondary, they're awesome as well. I mean, I've been saying that word all video long, but I'm telling you, man, this is a very epic matchup between these two defenses. Rhodes, Harrison Smith, those guys, they ball out as well. They have a very good backfield as well. If I had to give the initial edge, this is a little bit unusual, but I'm going to give it to the Vikings, actually. They have had a really good, stable defensive backfield, and Xavier Rhodes, he can be a shutdown corner. Harrison Smith, one of the best safeties in the NFL. I can't go wrong with either of them as the secondary backfield, and they've been balling out all year long. Initial edge, Minnesota's secondary, that's kind of weird to put, but at the same time, I think they've been doing really well all year long. So that's the defensive side of the ball. We're going to go to special teams and the coaching for the last initial edges. Last up, let's talk about special teams and coaching. Special teams first, 49ers versus Vikings. Who to give the initial edge to? Actually, I'm going to give it to the 49ers just because of the fact Robbie Gould, I think he's found himself now. He's one of the top kickers in the NFL for the past month in December. If it comes down to a clutch kick, I can't go wrong with Robbie Gould at all. Dan Bailey's their kicker as well. He's had a pretty good career with the Cowboys and the Vikings. Can't go wrong with them. But at the same time, I love me some Wishnowsky. I love me some Robbie Gould. And also our special teams unit, when they're kicking off and punt returning, they're really good as well. They can make some plays. They can cause some turnovers as well. I can't go wrong with the 49ers special teams. Initial edge, 49ers. Last up, let's talk about coaching. Mike Zimmer versus Kyle Shanahan. Who to give the initial edge to? Pretty interesting one. If you're talking about experience, definitely Mike Zimmer, just because of the fact he did take the team to the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago. Kyle Shanahan, he does have experience as an assistant coach, offensive coordinator for the Falcons. He did take the team to the Super Bowl with Matt Ryan and company, so it's kind of evenly odds if you're talking about making teams going far in the playoffs. But they give the initial edge, pretty difficult one. I mean, I don't know. Zimmer, old school guy, defensive guy. Kyle Shanahan, one of the new schools, offensive-minded coaches, one of the bright minds in the NFL. It's pretty difficult to go with. But if I did give the initial edge, maybe I'd be a little biased. I don't know, but I'm going to give it to Kyle Shanahan. I mean, all year long, he's been proven that he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, best play callers. Robert Saleh, his assistant coach, defensive coordinator, he's been a pretty good coordinator all year long as well. Number one defense, almost everything besides the Patriots and what have you. But yeah, I love me Kyle Shanahan. I think he's going to have a good play calling game, and we'll see what happens then. But initial edge, Kyle Shanahan. That's it, guys. Initial edges for all 49ers versus Vikings position by position. Pretty evenly matched, I would say, on both sides of the ball and special teams. It's going to be a difficult one to predict who I'm going to pick to win this game. But anyways, that's it, guys. I'm going to end the video here. Please let me know which edges would you give each position by position. I'd like to hear what you have to say in the comments below. If you guys like this, please like and subscribe. That's going to definitely help out a lot. I'll be catching you guys up tomorrow on Tuesday for predictions. I'll see y'all then. Bye, guys. Love y'all. Y'all have a great rest of your night. Go Niners all day.